Wow. First time I've heard that in a hot minute.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anything.
It's your boy, Intricate.
I don't know what you think you are, thinking you have some say. You left us last week. You didn't even love us.
Bro, can I just say, though, that tattoo looks smooth.
This one? I've had this one.
I just haven't seen it on camera, man.
Well, that's because you don't love us.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of No Place Like Homaha. We are your hosts, and everybody's here this week.
Finally, someone
let's
decided
just
to love us again.
get into it.
Pick and choose, I guess.
Again, a few upsets this past weekend. Just kind of looking at some of the games. Some of the games also got moved around.
Did either of you guys watch the Evansville game today?
No.
No. I
watching. I saw it was going into the 11th, right?
Yeah.
The top of the 12th. Oh, who the fuck were they playing? Whoever they were playing in the top of the 12th scored. And they came down to their last out in the bottom of the 12th, and they hit a bomb to tie it back up. So,
well, and then, who was it this week went into the 19th?
What?
Somebody on Friday night went into the 19th inning, and that just makes me think of.
I don't know if that was Division I.
I think it was. I
don't know who it was.
Let me look to see on Friday.
Figure it out for us, fact boy.
I'm looking, man.
Anyways, just looking at some weekend series. You had Oklahoma State took the series against Texas. Those were some pretty good games to watch.
You watched them?
I watched a few, yeah. Houston took the series against East Carolina. I believe Oklahoma took the series against Stanford.
You know why?
Because the Pac-12 sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Washington State, I believe, also took the series against UCLA.
You know why?
Washington State's also in the Pac-12, Mikey.
I know.
Yeah. Your argument kind of isn't valid there when it becomes conference play, my guy.
You have no talk.
Maryland also took this. Maryland also took
series against Iowa,
which also
so they'll fall out of the top 25 because they were 25.
Yeah. Well, and which also Iowa has a guy on the mound.
For 104.
Yeah. So Iowa's got the next Ben Joyce.
Which he was a two-sport athlete, if you didn't know that.
He went in playing – it wasn't a quarterback?
I think it was football.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was a quarterback, and he would have been better than Spencer Petras, I feel like. Yeah. But who knows?
That's not hard, but we're not a football player.
Exactly.
Yeah. Virginia Tech took the series against number 5 Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was big today as well.
I think Kentucky beat the doors off Missouri over the weekend.
Ugh.
Last score I saw was 10-0.
Yeah, bring them back down off the top. I will say it's been an interesting week. I think one of the most fun teams to watch, and I was able to watch some highlights from it as well. But this South Carolina team, man, they're out for blood, and they are swinging the bats extremely, extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
So the Gamecocks are looking to try to move across the board. I was able to catch a little bit of the last of the Arkansas-Alabama game this afternoon. Looks like Alabama has been still a threat within the SEC, but Arkansas is still trying to reign supreme. But, I mean, if you're one of those teams to kind of watch out for, I think the one team that you really have to put on the – you can't put on the back burner, is South Carolina. They have just been on a tear, moving through the rankings, I think, faster than anybody so far in college baseball. They had a big win a big series sweep against Missouri, which at the time Missouri was ranked in the top 25. You had a big series win against Mississippi State. This weekend, especially on the road at Duty Noble. So, I mean, the dude was rocking, and South Carolina came in and just pounced all over that. Now you got North Carolina coming up in a midweek, and then you got LSU, the top team in the country, coming up, especially with the big series that they had this last weekend against Tennessee. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that SEC matchup plays out because, I mean, you could be looking this weekend from April 6th all the way to the 8th, a potential SEC championship matchup, depending on how the bracket lays out between South Carolina and LSU. And LSU.
Be careful with that.
Why
I
is
said
that?
Last week, and Josh didn't like me saying potentially.
True. But
yeah,
I think
as well. potentially the Big 12, Maryland could win the SEC. Do you remember this, Josh?
You said what?
I said this last week, where you're seeing a potential SEC championship matchup between Tennessee and LSU, and you said, well, potentially Maryland can win the SEC as well. Remember that?
What?
Rewatch it. You didn't say Maryland exactly, but
Unfactual information? Question mark.
Are you
Not
trying
bring up
to
this
gaslight me to think that
Oh
No.
Lord, here
Yeah,
we
what is
go.
going on?
it actually
I don't
happened.
know about that. But looking
Here
also
we
then
go.
at another team to look out for, NC State, they took the series over Louisville, and doesn't look like they're struggling too much without Tommy Tanks. However, Tommy Tanks is helping out LSU. However, also LSU does have the 1 and 2 prospects. Dylan Cruz is an absolute animal.
Yeah.
Man has a 5-some batting average. He's just leading. He's got the Triple Crown right now, and he's just leading.
He does have the batting average shadow. I thought there was
So.
another small team name.
Nah, I think he leads all 3 now.
At the
home
moment,
runs?
well, at the moment before this weekend started, Dylan Cruz was so far hitting .542 on the season. He was also with an on-base percentage of .667. Led in total runs scored so far before this weekend with 48. So I mean, he's leading everything. The only thing that he's not leading is in home runs, and that's
so close.
Galganon from Florida, and he had 17 before this weekend. And also, you throw in South Carolina. Yeah, you throw South Carolina back in that mix with Gavin Cassis. And then, I mean, LSU pitching-wise has just been absolutely insane. You got Paul Scanis. He's got 71 strikeouts on the year, and then he's also got a whip of .56. And so, I mean, if you're looking at this LSU team, I'm going to be very, very scared the rest of how this season goes. You had a big series win against Tennessee this last weekend, and especially with the amount of runs that they scored against this Tennessee team. I mean, you had a 5-2 win on Thursday, you had a 6-4 on Friday, and then you did give up 14 on this last Saturday. But I mean, you can count it as April Fools because I mean that's just not how they play. But at the same time, this Tennessee team is deadly. But looking at this LSU pitching staff, I mean they're pretty good here as I try to pull up the stats here.
Well, here, let me. What's the difference between this? Because that Paul, I forget how you say his name. The pitcher from LSU with the first name Paul. Don't want to butcher his last name here. He's a transfer from Air Force last year.
Yeah,
that's where he was. So why was he not? Like, what's the difference between this year compared to last year? Because he was not. You know, I mean, he might have. He was probably the pitcher that he was.
Yeah.
Okay. No, he was not, obviously. But like, what has changed between Air Force and LSU other than maybe an offense, you know, an environment, the conference? I mean, he just wasn't on the map. I feel like as much.
I'm going to go with what Josh just said. I'm going to go with the coaching staff because so far this year on Scanis's official stat sheet, and their first 2 top starters. So you got Todd Floyd and then you got Scanis. Scanis is throwing a whopping .81 ERA as a starter. He's got 5 wins, appeared in 7 games. He's got 44 innings pitched. He's 44 and a third.
Himothy.
He is Himothy. He's only allowed 4 runs so far this year. He's got 8 walks to now after this weekend 83 strikeouts. So I mean, teams are only hitting a whopping 127 off him, and then you go back to Floyd. So I mean, you got 2 starters that are only throwing low from 164 down to 127 as an ERA as a big starting staff. For your number 1 and number 2 guys, I think for LSU that's the big thing. And like what Josh just said while you were kind of in the middle of your comment, I think it's your coaching staff. LSU has always been a team that when you have pitching, you're going to win ball games. You'll get to the regionals. You'll probably end up getting a top 16 bid. You'll probably end up getting to Omaha at some point. And LSU has been a team that has been proven to get to Omaha just year in, year out. So I think that if you can transfer from Air Force over to LSU, and I think if I can try to look up his stats from last year, we'll see what he's got. But Josh, if you got an opinion on it, I'd love to hear it.
I'd say like it's just coaching staff and resources. I feel like that's the reason why Like the SEC is always super competitive. Big 12 is a pretty competitive program. That's why you have those Power 5 schools. Like there's a reason for all that. So I feel like transferring from Air Force, we may not have the same. Again, you just don't have the same resources, same coaching staff. Maybe it's a coach that he gels with a little bit better. Maybe the pitching staff he gels with a little bit better instead of feeling like he has to be that guy, kind of like you said, where he has different teammates now and there's more offensive production, and maybe not as much stress on his shoulders.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just also like you said, the environment too. So it's just a change of scenery could also have that effect. You know, you have some kids transfer out of schools that do very poorly at their next school, thinking the grass is always greener. But then you also have some where it's just like, I just feel more comfortable in this environment. I just was able to fall back in love with the game or all this different kind of stuff. And so I feel like that's a big factor.
Well, and so I just pulled up his stats from last year. So Scanis last year at Air Force, 273 ERA. So throw out the 0.8. Oh, not bad.
Well,
throw
he
out the
can still
0.86
get
for the
there.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's going to be plenty of time for him to give up runs, but I mean, still for a college, and even with the arm that he has in the SEC, you go from a 273 in the Mountain West and you flip it all the way over to the SEC, and so far you're at a 0.86. I mean, that's huge. He had 10 wins on the year, 3 losses, and then 85 and 2/3 innings pitched. He only gave up 26 full earned runs. He had 96 strikeouts. So, I mean, he is well on his way this year to potentially shatter everything because he's already got 83 strikeouts on the year. So he is well on his way to shattering that 96. Batting average last year as teams was 224. So
yeah, and it's also just that too. Plus, I feel like a lot of those like military schools don't get the exact spotlight.
Yeah, I would agree.
So he could have flown under the radar where he's still putting out that production and stuff like that. But yet it's not coming up because it's like they're not a front runner. They're not a top 25 team. All this kind of stuff plays into it. Because if you look at some of let me pull up again, just kind of the on base percentage and all that kind of stuff when you look at the top 10 of those things. Yeah, because you have Dylan Cruz, batting average leader, then Jacob Wilson right underneath him, who we've talked about before from Grand Canyon. Then you got Dylan Ditzenberger from New Mexico State. Then you got Mike Boovey, who we've talked about before from UNO. But then you got like Ryan Galani. He's from
Yeah.
Ben Nemivant, who is from what is it?
That's Pacific.
Pacific, yeah.
Yep. And then you got Michigan State on there. Kyle Teal, West Virginia.
Yeah, and then like you look like down here at then the on base percentage, got Quinn McDaniel from Maine, got Chase Hugg from is that Evansville?
Chase, where are you looking?
Going on base.
I believe that's Evansville, yeah.
And then you got Luke Cantwell from FDU. Like a lot of these schools, you're not going to be your front runner for stuff, and so, like unless you really follow closely with all that kind of stuff, you're not going to see them. They're going to fly under the radar, but yet they're still playing high capacity D1 baseball.
Well,
and they're just not getting the recognition.
I was going to say throw Wofford on that list because, I mean, they've been in and out of the NCAA tournament for the regionals for at least the last 3 years. I mean, they've been sitting pretty damn well for themselves. I believe they made it last year, if I remember correctly. And then Campbell's on that list as well when he got lost to Carroll.
Hunter Fitzgerald from Old Dominion on there on a few different lists. He's on the home run list. Yeah. He's on the run scored leaders.
I think it's when you kind of look at that, I think when it comes to the hitting categories, I'm going to go with, in more cases than not, kind of like what you were saying, Josh, you have guys that they're not seeing that top tier pitching all the time. And granted, that's nothing against them because, I mean, hitting a baseball in general is hard. Like being able to hit 400 no matter what level you're at is going to be difficult in itself. Because when you actually kind of break that down, if you're hitting 400 in D1, you could potentially be hitting like maybe 500 in D2, and you could be going down that list and hitting higher on your different levels. It could be the exact opposite if you're going up. Maybe you're hitting 350 in D3 or NAIA, and then you're maybe hitting like kind of mid 200s to low 300s when you get all the way up to the D1 level. I think it's definitely on that idea of the tougher competition, but I still think that in these smaller conferences with baseball specifically, you're going to see a lot more guys being able to hit higher numbers. Because I mean, if you look at the stolen bases, I mean that's led by pretty much that's led by all small conferences. Because you've got Devin Hims from the Devils from what is that? Valley State, right?
That was the ranking. He's no
Yeah.
longer leading it.
Yeah, but you got him with 25
Well,
steals.
he's tied
with
25.
Weatherholt.
I have 24.
That was before the beginning of the week. Because Weatherholt from West Virginia had 24, and then I don't know where this other
Where are you getting this information from? Because on mine, he's got 23 right now.
college baseball.
So
on that,
I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but I mean,
updated though, so that could be it.
This was at the beginning of the week, so this was 3 days ago. So this was
right.
On
but
Thursday.
if that's at the beginning of the week, why am I looking at this? He has one less stolen base.
All right, well then
took it away.
And then
when you get thrown out on base, actually, they take it away.
But so I mean, my point was, you're looking at all the stolen base leaders. All of these schools you have two Power 5. Yeah, you have two Power 5 schools on there from this top 6 list. Because I've got West Virginia on there as a Power 5.
Yeah.
With Weatherholt sitting, he was at 24 from 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And then you got Brandon Jones from Kansas State with 19.
No, I don't have that. I only have top 5.
Yeah. So then that was from 3 days ago. But otherwise, everybody else with steals is non-Power 5. When you come to ERA leaders,
well, you can even look at the home run leaders right now. 2 of the 5 aren't Power 5.
Yeah.
And
so I mean,
look at the batting average, and 3 of the 5 are not Power 5.
Because you're probably looking at D1 baseball at the moment, aren't you?
Of course I am. I'm big donkey guy. Big donkey sport.
Big donkey guy.
Big donkey.
We get him on the pod. That'd be
cool. But yeah, I would kind of like to say that all of your low level, I wouldn't even say low level D1s, your non-Power 5s, we'll just put it that way.
Let's be realistic here.
All right, go for it.
The non-Power 5s just aren't Power 5 because of
conference.
The tennis they got, the money that they bring in, the town that they're in. It's not like they're bad. I mean, some of them are bad.
Iona.
But some of them are not. Like, you even got teams in the Power 5 that are bad, i.e. frickin' Northwestern.
Yeah.
Which we should probably check on them. But then you've got teams like I don't even here. Just even looking at the top 25. Let's look Coastal Carolina. I don't know what fucking city they're out of, but I'm assuming it's not huge. Same with Campbell's not a huge school. It's an Ivy school. This is kind of counterintuitive, but the rest of the 25 is all big schools.
Yeah.
But
East Carolina,
Florida Gulf Coast is not huge.
Yeah, East Carolina's not a very big school.
You don't need to be a huge school to be good. I mean, granted, if you are a huge school and in the Power 5, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Because you've got the funding, the players, the recognition, and all that. But it's not like football where if you Nebraska brings in schools, they pay them $500,000 to come in, and they'll still get beat. Baseball, you just you see it all the time, especially during these midweeks. LSU might lose to an Evansville this week, or Wake Forest could lose to freaking Vermont. It's a different sport. But I don't think specifically baseball, you can't label, because this team is non-Power 5, they're going to be bad and they don't have a chance. to compete.
I would 100% agree on that because I mean, taking a look at just even throwing it back to last year's regional or like the entire College World Series tournament, starting with the regionals. Dallas Baptist is not in a Power Five. Dallas Baptist has been in the regionals for God knows how many years. And they just can't seem to break the streak. Then you throw it back to what was it, 2015 or 2016 when Coastal Carolina broke through on their third straight trip to the Supers and got there. And then they made it all the way to the CWS. They beat an Arizona team who was one of the top teams in the country offensively and just completely shut them down with the bullpen. That's a team that everybody loves to see. Oklahoma last year, granted they were in the Power Five, but Oklahoma has never really been known as a baseball school, especially in the Big 12. And they came through swinging last year. You get a team like Southern Miss, and I'll throw Old Dominion on that list as well.
Yeah, you better.
Yeah, that that Sun Belt and Conference USA, all of that stuff on that East Coast side when it comes to conferences, they have been swinging themselves around, just whipping it out and being able to compete with the top
dick player of the week.
Exactly. They've been able to swing it with every single other team in America. I think when it comes to baseball, you are going to get teams that are going to be they look so unathletic and they look not as talented as your LSUs, your Vanderbilts, your what's another school that we can throw in there that's not SEC?
Wake Forest.
Texas Tech.
Wake Forest, Texas Tech, TCU.
I'm not naming the name conference.
Yep. You'll get a team like Liberty. You'll get a team like Liberty last year and UConn, who were top.
TCU lost.
Yeah. And UConn, just building off of that, they swept this weekend against UMBC.
Yeah. So they're keeping on the same role that they had last year. Their ERA is good. Pitching has been phenomenal. So, I mean, you take a look at those kind of teams. If you can compete with the best on some of the small things and you can actually play small ball and do it right. Because what was it? I saw Tennessee the other night on Thursday in the 8th inning had 3 blunders in a row on small.
I don't think that's Tennessee.
No, it was Tennessee because it was Tennessee LSU because LSU broke it open in the 8th. 2
RBI. Who the heck was the game where they were down like 7 runs or whatever in the 9th and they just kept bunting?
I can't think
of who it was.
I know exactly.
It might have been 2 weeks ago or this past week. I don't remember. You guys keep talking. Let me see if I can find this.
But if you can play small ball with the best of them, you're probably going to win 9 times out of 10 just because teams like LSU, teams like Texas, teams like, and I'll just throw it on there because that was the first thing that I'm looking at. Teams like East Carolina, Texas A&M, every top 16 seed from last year, they'll play small ball. But your teams like Southern Miss and probably East Carolina would too. Those low-hanging fruits of the top 16 national seeds, they'll play small ball better than anyone in the country because that's how scrappy they are. And they will do it down to a T. Your teams like LSU, they'll practice it and they will be the best at it, I will say with quotes. But they're not going to truly be the best at it because that's not what they're known for. So it's how Stony Brook pretty much made it to Omaha back in what was it,
2012?
Yeah, it was like 2012 to 2014.
Dude, I was in middle school. It was them in Kent State.
You were so adamant on either picking Kent State or Stony Brook.
I'm always behind the underdog, and it was great because my dad and I went down there when they played on Father's Day, and we wore a bunch of Stony Brook gear and a bunch of LSU fans. Again, just side note from that, if LSU keeps up at the same pace again, just like Tennessee last year, I don't want them to putter out near the end if they have a fantastic season. But if LSU, makes it back, I'm so excited for their fans to be back. But they invited us to come tailgate and stuff. Oh, sweet.
What was even the first? It was even the first year that Omaha they had it downtown at TD Ameritrade because I think you, me, and Mitch went and there were LSU fans that were inviting us to try to go do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that kind of stuff, but it's just every year though. I feel like the underdog kind of gets a ton of support, especially if it's their first time ever
Oh yeah,
making it to Omaha. And it was the fact that they went down to LSU, beat them in Death Valley, and then came up here. So
yeah, and especially Coastal Carolina, because I
oh
mean
yeah.
Myrtle Beach is such a, like Mikey was saying, where he didn't know they were from. Myrtle Beach is such a it's big, but for that school, it's just such a small kind of environment, and to get the crowd that they did back in 16, that was huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, checking in on Northwestern though, they're 3-19.
Ugh.
They are 1-0 at home, so they're undefeated at home. They are 2-17 away and 0-2 at neutral sites. So if they can keep the undefeated streak at home, their next game is against Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Ugh.
So they're probably going to lose that. And then they have a 3-game home series against Illinois.
Might be another L. We'll see.
So they can try to stay undefeated at home.
The Iona Gales are 4-20, in case anybody's wondering.
Yeah, they are.
They're on a 4-game skid.
They're on pace, dude.
Big time.
Suck wiener.
All righty.
Wow.
Prison.
Horny jail.
All right, so
yeah, where are we going from
bitch.
this?
I'm not in horny jail.
taking a glance then at the upcoming week. On Tuesday, ranked opponents that'll be playing. We got Boston College and UMass, Air Force and Texas. NC State and East Carolina will be one to tune in, actually. That'll be a pretty good game. I feel like NC State will pull that one out. Bethune-Cookman in Florida. Virginia Liberty. Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech will be a good one to watch. It's not ranked, but I like that Georgia Tech team. Campbell and Duke. UCF and Miami. Wake Forest and Elon. Coastal Carolina and Clemson will be a good one to tune into. Lipscomb and Louisville. Dayton, Kentucky. Western Kentucky and Vanderbilt. Arkansas State and Arkansas. And a lot of in-state matchups. Wichita State and Oklahoma State.
I was going to say, you're skipping over the massive one here that I'm staring at. South Carolina.
North Carolina. I was just going to get to that one next.
That'll be a good 13.
Little matchup there. You got Nichols and LSU. You got Albany Christian and Texas Tech. And UCLA and Long Beach State. Mikey will definitely be tuning into that game at probably 11 o'clock at night because they play on the West Coast. Then on Wednesday, you got Iowa, who will probably drop out of the top 25, playing Bradley. You got West Virginia and Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Then I believe we got some series starting up on Thursday.
We do.
Okay, Notre Dame, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Miami, and Virginia. Be a pretty good matchup. As will Boston College and Louisville. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State and TCU. Vanderbilt, Missouri. LSU and South Carolina. Just like we were talking about the South Carolina team being hot. It'll be interesting to see them play LSU. I believe South Carolina is at home for that game. Kansas State, Texas. North Dakota State and Texas Tech. Arkansas, Ole Miss. Be another one. And Florida and Tennessee. Ooh. Got a lot of top 10 matchups. Utah, UCLA. I'm just going to list off all the Pac-12 because Mikey's really interested in that. Washington, Arizona, San Diego State, USC, Stanford and Cal, Oregon State and Oregon, Washington State and Arizona State. And see, most of those games are happening at 9 o'clock at night. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because nobody cares about it.
No, it's because they play on the West Coast.
No, it's because nobody cares.
I'm just gonna let Mikey roll
this is what they said. They said, "Oh, nobody's gonna watch our games, so we're gonna go as late as possible," and that's what they did.
Sure.
No, that's what happened.
There's one team. There's a couple teams that I want to talk about after this week, but one of them is kind of
top. Don't if you mention a Pac-12 team, I swear.
We're not going to talk about a Pac-12 team. We're going to talk about an SEC. And sad to say, I've got two. I've got an SEC and an ACC team. I want to talk about the SEC first, just because, granted, and this is not because the SEC reigns supreme for all of those SEC fans out there, but your reigning national champs have been falling off the board, and they've been falling a little hard because they've now dropped their past 3 SEC series to open up the year, because you had a loss to Vanderbilt, a clean sweep from Vanderbilt, as Ole Miss has had. Then you go into Gainesville, you got swept in Gainesville, or swept at home from Florida, excuse me. And then you go all the way to College Station in Texas A&M. You take 1 win away from the Aggies, but then you get a series loss. Now they're coming up to Arkansas. This is going to be back at Swayze coming up this next weekend. Ole Miss needs some help. I think this is mainly a bullpen struggle. And I mean, last year at the same time coming out for them, they had a couple of big starters on the hill, and then everything else was falling off the list. Offensively, I think Ole Miss is fine. I think this is just, if you can flip the bullpen around like they had at the end of the year, where you had some of the best closers in the country, you had the best relief arms there coming through the regional tournament, I think Ole Miss can get back on track, but they need to do it this weekend against Arkansas, because that's going to be Big Suey coming off hot with a series win against Alabama. That was huge for them. And then my second team on that list that I want to talk about, this is kind of an up-and-comer, and you don't hear a lot from this team. Mainly it is in football from the SEC, but Boston College coming into the top 25, ranked at 14th coming into the weekend, and they've had a couple of big series wins. They've had a couple of just midweek scrappy wins. They had on March 7th, they had a big win against number 2 Tennessee in 10 innings, 7-6. You had a series win against the Virginia Tech team, who's very tough. You had a full series win against Florida, or Florida State, excuse me, on March 18th. Then you steal a series against NC State. You had a big win against UConn midweek. And then coming up from this last weekend, they seem to drop the first game of the series. If not, it's the first or the second, but they come back hot. This Boston College team should be one to look out for. Offensively, they're scoring a lot of runs. This last Georgia Tech game, it was 24-12. UConn, there was 6-3. You had a win over NC State 8-7, so they can score some runs. They're hitting the ball extremely well. Now they got a series against Louisville, and this is going to be in Louisville this weekend. I think that's going to be just kind of one to watch of a team. Can they continue this kind of run through the ACC, or are they going to fall off kind of as the conference goes on? Because they still have yet to play Wake Forest. That'll be at the beginning of May. And then they got Notre Dame to close out the year before the ACC championship. But this Boston College team has just kind of been impressive to read through their score lines and some of the teams that they've beaten.
You want to read it for us?
How much do you want me to dive into? Because, I mean, I could dive into the whole series. But, I mean, you take on a Tennessee. Tennessee is probably one of their biggest wins of biggest wins of the year so far, where they were ranked number 2. That was, like I said, back on March 7th. That was a 7-6 win in 10 innings. Virginia Tech, the 2 games that they won out of there was 8-5 and 7-3. Florida State 4-2, 8-2 for the series win. Then you go to North Carolina State. You had 4-1, 8-7 and 10. Georgia Tech was 3-1, and then, like I said, 24-12. So I mean, they could put some run production on the boards. So want to see what this Boston College Eagles team can do.
I feel like that. Yeah, those 2 are definitely going to be pretty big series to watch. I mean, you also got, just building off of talking about NC State. You got NC State and Wake Forest, just building off of that ACC matchup. Mm-hmm. That'll be a good one to watch as well as Miami and Virginia. So you got a lot of big play down there that'll, again, kind of shake up. It shouldn't shake it up too much, the standings. Especially Boston College, Louisville, they can go kind of either way. Since they're so closely ranked, I don't think either of them will move too much based on that. But again, we'll kind of see as that continues to go down. But yeah, my big one, though, is going to be Florida and Tennessee, because Tennessee, like we talked about with Ole Miss as well, Tennessee kind of been on a skid. Just near the beginning of the season, not the team that they were last year. Again, didn't come off of a hangover or anything like that, but they just kind of let people down, I guess, near the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
feel like they let themselves down more than anything, obviously, because you play kind of for the guys around you and stuff like that. But coming off of such a special season they had last year with a lot of really talented players, I feel like this season they went in ranked very high and then got challenged early and didn't stand up to the task. So I'm hoping they can either bounce back against this Florida team, or if Florida again sweeps the series cleanly, then we're going to have to question, should Tennessee even be considered in the top 10, let alone the top 15.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's going to be the question a lot when it comes to the SEC schools is where do you draw the line of who gets placed where? Because I mean, another big matchup for the SEC this weekend is South Carolina versus LSU. How far would South Carolina fall if they drop the series? If they get swept, I would say you drop them pretty decently far. But I mean, if they lose 2 games, if they keep LSU close, they're able to handle that high-powered offense that the Tigers have. Tommy Tanks, you can keep him on there. I wouldn't think South Carolina would drop far. Then again, it flips to the other side. If LSU drops the series, gets swept from South Carolina,
do they move, right?
I would say LSU still stays in the top 5. They've proven
right, but they may fall like 2 spots or 1 spot.
Just
depending also how the other 2 schools below them do, right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you had, for LSU so far, I mean, you had big series win against Texas A&M, Arkansas, now Tennessee. So you've had 3 SEC-tested schools. South Carolina's still looking to kind of get that really big SEC win that they've been pushing for so far this year. I think that they can do it, though. It's just a matter of how far are you going to draw that line when it comes to an SEC school? Because, I mean, you take a team like Iowa, who just lost their entire series to Maryland, you're really falling out of the top 25. You're going to have to work 10 times harder to hop back in. UConn loses a series. UConn's going to get booted because you've got Texas, Texas Tech, Miami, and West Virginia all hyping up the back of them and saying, hey, we want a taste of that top 15. I don't know who you're going to give it to, but at the same time, if UConn drops a series, how fast are they going to be out? It's the same thing with Old Dominion on how Old Dominion has not been dropped into the top 25 yet. But then again, the competition that Old Dominion has played may not have been the best. Sorry, Mikey.
Okay, Texas boy. Whatever. Horns down, bitch. Horns down.
Facts. Dropping a series to Oklahoma State was tough.
Sucking at baseball must be tough.
Damn.
Might as well just kick you to the Pac-12 at this point.
Oh, wow! Don't go that far.
I think you belong there more than you do the SEC.
Well,
wow.
Me, Texas probably. Me, no.
Yeah, they lost to Virginia and
now who are we talking
Old
about?
Dominion. They lost 8-1.
Yeah, and they won the series against Georgia Southern. Who cares?
Yep. They lost the last game though 16-0 in 7 innings.
Happens, bro.
They must have run out of pitching or something at the end.
It happens.
They will play Southern Miss.
Southern Miss, correct.
They got a series, and then they got to play East Carolina in a midweek game, and then they'll play Coastal Carolina.
Easy dubs. Easy dubs throughout.
That'll be a test for them.
We'll have to see. They've got a wow.
That'll be a tough series back to back to back. Those are great opponents.
They've got a gauntlet coming up at the next month. They've got Southern Miss, East Carolina, Coastal, Appalachian State. I'm not too concerned about. And then they got Texas State
coming down the road. Liberty.
Z dubs.
Old Dominion's got a rough coming up, man. That Sun Belt Conference is going to be gritting their teeth.
Isn't in the Sun Belt, but easy dubs.
I never said anything about Texas Tech. What?
I'm not even worried.
Season.
Not even worried.
Not even.
Why you lying? Why the fuck you lying?
I'm not lying. Why would I be worried? They hit bombs and bang moms. What does Texas do other than flip the horns upside down? Not a whole lot.
Bombs and bang moms. I don't think I've heard that one.
They do. It's the Old Dominion Lions, baby.
Well, again, those are the things kind of coming up for this weekend. Gentlemen, you got anything else we want to talk about?
Yeah, Texas is trash.
Well,
Sorry,
that's
I
already
say.
been confirmed multiple times. So
If Old Dominion makes it to the College World Series, Flintstone Gummies is supplying a lifetime supply.
I don't even believe you. I don't even believe you.
that is the
don't
most
even believe you.
unfactual information
Why?
I have ever heard.
Yeah, because Old Dominion ain't gonna make it to Omaha.
Whoa!
No, because you.
It's because of the committee. It's because of the committee.
End this podcast
committee.
right now. End it right now.
All right. Well,
I can't do this. With him.
If you're tuning in already, please like and subscribe to our video. Again, since you're here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe to the podcast. Again, we are out on all platforms. You can find us on Twitter and TikTok at Homaha Pod. Again, be on there for updates as well, especially since we're kind of to that mid-season hump, kind of getting there. Then
Let's chat,
start
little
getting
Timmy.
super into it, paying attention, and I see.
Thinks he's funny.
He thinks he is funny. He
Little
actually
does he
just said
know,
in the chat,
God
I'm not
is gonna
really a Texas
metaphorically
fan.
kick you in the balls.
He actually figured out how to do this in emojis, so that's what we were interested about.
God is gonna metaphorically kick you in the testicles.
Interesting.
For this heinous comment you just made.
Anyways,
Just
again,
FYI.
as we get into then closer to regional play, we'll do just like we did last year. Bring out the big board. We'll make predictions based on that once the regional play is out there. But again, that's over a month away. 2 months.
Got 2.
Month and a half.
Yeah, give or take.
Something like that.
I'm getting upset with you fuckers.
But again, just pay attention for any updates from us. So, again, it's been fun. It's been real. Has not been real fun.
Don't be surprised if Nick's not on the next podcast.
Fired.
Alrighty. Catch y'all later.